The candidates are all going to speak. They each have 10-minute period uninterrupted. There's no engaging of opponents' opinions. They're speaking their opinions and what their solutions are. I'll be providing a card at 3 minutes, 1 minute, and when your time is up. After all of the candidates have their 10-minute speaking time, we'll have the question and answer period. Candidate responses are limited to 1 minute per question.
Next speaker will be John Orzel, running on the Democratic ticket for the New York State Senate, 52nd District. John.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
In terms of my biographical information, it's on a palm card in the back, so please help yourself to one of those cards. I am a product of the area too, spent all of my life here. I love this area. You're a product of your past, you're a product of your experience. I'm a retired school teacher. And so the information I want to present to you tonight comes out of that experience as having been a classroom teacher for 34 years. We were asked to turn around and talk about issues that are important to us, and probably the issue out of all of them that's most important ends up being education. Two things in particular. It's the recent introduction of the APPR, okay, the Annual Professional Performance Review, which has been introduced into schools this year. And the other ends up being the impact of the hard 2% property tax cap upon public school education in New York State. Education was my profession of choice. I love that. I never ever thought I would see the day come when teachers would be as demonized as they are now. It troubles me. And I guess what troubles me is there's such sweeping generalizations being made here about the profession. Every student fails. None of them pass. None of them ever go out in the world and accomplish anything. They're all inferior. They're substandard. Teachers really don't do much of anything, ever. They didn't teach you to tie your shoes. They didn't teach you the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. You taught that to yourself. They didn't teach you physics and chemistry and math. They didn't teach you to play the saxophone. You did all that on your own. We're not exactly sure what those teachers do, but they really aren't important in the scheme of things. Teachers. Those huge salaries, all those health care benefits, those paid-up pensions, summer vacations, Christmas vacations, spring vacations, Thanksgiving vacations, vacations, the life of Riley. Who has wrecked the economy in New York State? It's teachers and their unions. That's what's done that. All right, with that as an introduction, let me go back and see if I can relate some of this to the Constitution, being that this is an organization that focuses much of its attention on the Constitution. Our founding fathers in their infinite wisdom way back when not only fought the Revolutionary War and won it, very quickly established the Articles of Confederation that set up the United States of America, in which we had an imbalance of power. The states really were more powerful than the central government. And these same founding fathers, in a day and age where there are no cell phones, there's no telephones, there's no email, you don't hop on the train or the plane or whatever, it was very difficult to even communicate back then. These men came to the very quick conclusion, you know what? This government under the Articles of Confederation does not work, and we need to fix it. And that fix came with the drafting of the Constitution, which all of this, from the war to the Confederation to the Constitution, 13 years. It took our Broome County legislature 13 years to decide as to where they were going to build a new public library. Now in this document, this Constitution, these founding fathers had to deal with, well, we need to make laws, we need to enforce them, we need to interpret them. Well, of those three, the one that obviously is most important is the power to be able to make laws. Because you can't very well enforce them until you make them, and you can't interpret them until you make them. And therein lies the reason why the very first article of the United States Constitution does what?
Provides for the legislature.
It creates the legislative branch of the federal government. Bicameral, Congress, 2 houses, House of Representatives, the United States Senate. And it was also decided, well, we can't just simply sit here and list every power there is. No, what we're going to do is this. We're going to turn around and delegate or give powers to the federal government to this Congress. We're going to delegate those powers. We're going to enumerate them. We're going to list them right in Article 1. And it's with the understanding that the power that goes to the federal government, states can't do it. And it states right there in Article 1. The federal government, Congress, shall have the power to coin money. States can't do that. Congress shall have the power to declare war. States can't do that. Federal government should have the power to raise an army and a navy. States can't do that. And on and on and on and on. But now to education. The federal Constitution says zippo about education. And because it says nothing about education, this constitutes what Julie referred to earlier as a reserved power that goes to the states. And that concept was reiterated in Amendment 10 in the Bill of Rights that were added as soon as we had adopted the Constitution. And therein lies the reason why, way back when there were 13 states in the United States, we ended up with 13 different educational systems, and that's why today we end up having 50 different educational systems, and they are very, very, very different. The typical New York State high school, public school, junior, successfully completing course requirements established by the state of New York at their end of their junior year, they would be graduating from high school in the state of Florida. Think about that. And because New York State has the power to control education in New York State, we created a Board of Regents, the Board of Regents that supervises all of education in New York State, public education. We appoint a Commissioner of Education. We have a State Department of Education. The governor of the state, the Assembly, the Senate, their respective educational committees, they're all involved in establishing educational policy and educational curriculum. This is all disseminated down through approximately 700 public school districts across the state of New York. I taught high school social studies, primarily 9th and 10th graders. I also had some 12th graders. I was free to go into a classroom and teach anything that I wanted to. I could go in there and teach kids, this is how you make pyramids out of popsicle sticks. I could do that. But they pointed out to me, there is a curriculum that we've given to you that you need to turn around and teach in the course of the year. Because at the end of the year, what's going to end up happening is your kids are going to take a standardized test. What's the standardized test? Many of you have taken them. Regents examinations. And this has been going on close to 100 years. And every grade level, every subject, all of them have these curriculum guides. This is what needs to be taught. And if you don't teach it, they walk into that exam in June, you haven't covered the material, they're going to fail. Or they might fail. Which brings me now to the APPR. This annual professional performance review. It's been decided now that what's going to end up happening is teachers, their evaluation, 20% of that is going to be based on students' performance on standardized tests. So Johnny, when you go out and you fail that examination, you know what? I'm going to get part of the blemish too. It's my fault you failed. I can remember, senior, okay? Mr. and Mrs. Smith, your son Johnny here, senior. We're not even 3 weeks into the year. Not doing homework, he hasn't passed a quiz, he hasn't passed a test, and I'm sending home notice after notice after notice. Please call me, we need to have a conference, you need to come in, we need to talk about this. His attendance is falling off. He doesn't miss basketball practice. He goes to all the school dances. Nothing all year long. June rolls around in the second week of June, I get their attention then. When the letter goes home informing them, Johnny has failed the course and he is not going to be graduating. Now they're waiting at my door. I get phone calls morning, noon, and night. What can he do for extra credit? Johnny has no credit. But now there will be sweet revenge, because what will end up happening, from what I understand here, once these programs are developed, Johnny and his parents are going to be able to have input into, you see, it's Mr. Orzel's fault. No, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'll accept my responsibility in terms of teaching your child. If you are going to accept the responsibility, you failed as a parent. And that's why your son failed this course. I get to take the rap for it? I find this iffy. I think we've made a big mistake here. And the reason why they're doing this is because this has been tied to this business about race to the top for federal funding for schools. We are going to have to hold schools accountable for teacher performance. I don't think this is the way to do it. Oh, I've been told my time is up. What this reminds me of is kids in school used to say, Mr. Orzel, you never shut up. We get to the end of it, I used to tell them, you're going to run out of time before I'm ever going to run out of stuff to tell you. Hey, I appreciate that I'm here. I welcome questions later. Thank you.